Nice little video there from Tampa Bay, Florida, and our next guest is in Tampa, Florida. Of course, we're talking Twitter today here on the broadcast. Of course, Twitter was initially pretty hostile to this idea of Elon Musk trying to take it over. But it's now starting to kind of warm up to the idea after the billionaire said last week that he secured the necessary $43 billion in funding. Sources familiar with the matter said that Twitter is taking another closer look at the deal now and maybe closer as well to negotiating, given how quickly Elon Musk got that financing secured. Still, any deal is far from conclusive. As you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of legal matters to have to kind of work through and a lot of issues to talk about as well. And here to give us some perspective and navigate some of the finer matters of this Twitter takeover possibility is Rebecca Walser. Rebecca is a top 100 U.S. advisor, a tax attorney, a wealth strategist, a certified financial planner, and now a #1 best-selling author with her first book, Wealth Unbroken, Growing Wealth Uninterrupted by Market Crashes, Taxes, and Even Death. Ms. Walser, I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. We're glad you're here. So obviously a lot to talk about and dissect with this possible Twitter takeover by Elon Musk. Let's just talk about the business aspect to this right now. Kind of walk our viewers what's going on right now behind the scenes. You know, Elon Musk has a lot of money in the bank, but he had to secure some financing. Kind of give us an idea of what's going on.
So Elon, in his typical way, made a tweet for an offer, $43 billion, best and final. And the board really reacted very negatively to that, David, initially. And they actually even went as far as creating a poison pill, which is a legal methodology to, when you have a potential hostile takeover that you're not interested in, you can dilute ownership through other suitors by existing shareholders. They basically can buy more shares at a diluted price. And that's a way to stop a takeover. But since Elon, as of Friday, announced that he secured $25.5 billion of debt financing through Merrill Lynch and Bank of America, as well as some other syndicate players, and another $21 billion in equity financing. Some of that is secured, $12.5 billion of that is secured by some of his own equity positions and shares, so collateralized basically. Since he came to the table on Friday with some real backed financing of the deal, the Twitter board obviously has a fiduciary obligation to its shareholders, David, to undertake and really investigate any kind of real legitimate offer. And since the offer does put the share stock per price at $54.20, which is trading higher than their current current trading level, then it's a deal that the board needs to look at as a fiduciary.
And it's interesting you point out that they have that fiduciary responsibility to look at the deal, because that's something that Elon Musk tweeted out, if you will, very early in this process, well before he had this secured financing on the table. He was basically saying, look, you've got an obligation to your shareholders to at least look at this deal.
Exactly. I mean, the Twitter board might have preferences of how their platform is run, but certainly at the end of the day, they have a fiduciary obligation to the shareholders, and the shareholders, for the most part, David, most people assume that the shareholders invested in Twitter as an investment, not as a policy statement, not as a way to run, a social media platform, but as an investment to actually make financial returns. And as an investment, you do have to consider every legitimate offer, no matter the source of the offer. And that's what Twitter's now doing. And it looks like the board wanted to get, the ability to potentially talk to other suitors. That is, from what I understand, what's being reported, that is not going to happen, but they could still potentially entertain other deals. They would just have to pay Elon a breakup fee if the deal does not go forward during the disclosure and the due diligence time period.
Well, I really appreciate your perspective on this. So I've got to ask you, from your financial perspective, from your financial background as an expert, if you were a fly on the wall, what's going on right now over there at the Twitter building today in terms of this deal and the negotiations?
Well, I think that Elon has magically, and as he does, backed this board into a corner, and he's put them in a position where they have to talk to him. And, it's not to say that they won't be able to talk to other suitors before this deal actually does finalize and close, but they will have to pay Elon if what I understand is going down right now. I think this board is just reluctant, David. I don't think that this is the person they wanted to take this entity private, but they have, from a financial perspective, if we are honest, they are really behind all the other social media platforms in the way of advertising, the way of monetizing what they have, and that is a problem. And it really has been a stagnant, flat stock without a lot of earnings, returns, and potential for people for a while, when you've got everything else taking off and really monetizing and capitalizing on the ability to reach such a massive global audience. I mean, Twitter has a lot going for it, and it has a lot going against it. And I think that you've got two forces coming from opposite sides coming together to try to see what it can become.
And obviously a lot of moving parts to this story. It's still developing, and it involves a lot more to, I think a lot of us might just think, well, why isn't he just going to write a check and be done with it? But there's a lot more involved than that. So how soon do you think we might actually hear about some definitive news?
It's interesting. I think that we could hear something as fast as today. There will be a due diligence period, disclosure period. The SEC, too, also might have something to say. And the only reason I bring that up is because, Elon had announced late in the game that he had over a 9% share of Twitter, when the rule requires that once you acquire 5% of a company, you're supposed to disclose that to the SEC in a filing within 10 days. And I don't think that Elon I'm not sure. I can't say for sure. I am a lawyer, but I'm not able to state this as a fact that I know. I don't know that Elon followed that guidance. And so the question is the SEC going to intervene and get involved in the entire process here or not? I mean, obviously the SEC and Elon have a long history going back for quite a while of the things that he's done with obviously Tesla. And I think that he'll be fine there, but it could potentially make some things delayed a little bit.
Rebecca Walser bringing the great perspective and analysis for us today. Miss Walser, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.